Today we are going to deep dive into the world of trauma. Our generation, my generation versus my parents' generation, we all have very different ideas of what trauma is. Both big T trauma and little t trauma are valid experiences. So it's essential to validate these experiences and seek support when needed. Healing is possible. Welcome back to the well. So today we are going to deep dive into the world of trauma. It's a complex topic, especially nowadays, and it's one that often carries a lot of stigma. So I thought it would be helpful to maybe categorize big T trauma and little t trauma and really give everybody kind of a clear definition of how to distinguish between the two of them and what they really are. Let's dive right in and right off the hop get clear on what big T trauma and little t trauma is. Big T trauma, it refers to major life-threatening events. So think of car accidents, natural disasters, physical or sexual abuse, war, combat. Those types of experiences often involve an overwhelming sense of helplessness, and they can have a profound lasting impact on a person's life. Little T trauma, on the other hand, encompasses experiences like they are still deeply painful and they are upsetting, but they don't necessarily involve life-threatening situations. So for example, emotional abuse, neglect, bullying, maybe the loss of a loved one, a huge significant life transition like a divorce or moving. Those are all little T trauma examples. There's three key differences between big T trauma and little t trauma. Number one, the severity, right? So big T trauma typically involves physical danger or a threat to your life, while little t trauma often is more emotional based. Number two, impact. They both can have long-term effects on your life, but big T trauma often leads to more severe or persistent symptoms, like PTSD, or adjustment disorders. And then the third one is recognition. So big T trauma is often more readily acknowledged and understood and accepted, while little t trauma can be minimized or dismissed fairly quickly. So while you may perceive something as not a big deal, perhaps to that person, it really has impacted them. Maybe their parents forgot to pick them up from school. And for you, maybe that happened all the time. So you're like, get over it. Who cares? Just walk home, take the bus, or do what my brother and my cousin did when they were 6 and grab a cab. But that does not mean that will not impact that child. That can trigger abandonment wounds. There's a lot there. Trauma is very complex, but the recognition of it is a really big one that I think doesn't get talked enough about because it's other people deciding for you the impact that event should have on you or your life. It's also really important to emphasize that both big T trauma and little t trauma are valid experiences. So it's like, regardless of the size, they can significantly impact a person's mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So it's essential to validate these experiences and seek support when needed. In order to overcome trauma, I want everyone to know, whether you are experiencing big or little t trauma, that healing is possible. Therapy, support groups, maybe self-care practices, these are all invaluable tools on the road to recovery. And you are not alone. There's other people out there who are also experiencing similar things. If you feel as though you are not getting the help you need, look for other approaches, look for other modalities. Be willing to try something whether or not you know it's going to work. Leave your expectations at the door. Sometimes it is the smallest things, particularly in coaching and with my clients. It's the smallest exercises. It's the smallest adjustments that end up having the biggest impact. It's simple, yet complex. If you have any questions about big T trauma, little t trauma, or if you just want to share your experience and your stories, I'd love to hear from you. Please don't forget to subscribe to The Well. You can find me on Spotify and a YouTube channel. I will leave some links in the notes. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And I hope that you found this helpful. I think it'll be helpful for many.